Yeah, welcome back YouTube, and this is my first ever attempt at fleshing out a last Epoch build. It is a Acolyte, Lich, Reaper, and as I've been leveling a dot variant, um, I started digging around with Transplant, noticed how well it synergizes with Death Seal and with some of the gear that I've already had. Um, Mainly stuff that gives me spell damage and necrotic damage while I'm transformed and while I'm on low life. And then I suddenly perceived that Satori, in the form of a giant hammer tenderizing meat, or at least the sound you get from splatting those bosses down, is what it reminds me of. So the actual combo, the gimmick that makes it all happen is you, as you roam around in Reaper form, clear packs with Soul Feast. Soul Feast is important because it makes you drain it leaves you out of mana, so that you can get the bonus damage from Transplant. I'll talk about that in a second, but just the combo is Reaper form. You clear shit with Soul Feast. Then when you encounter that specific boss or echo boss or tough rare or something, you just pop your dead seal, you cast soul feast until you get out of mana, and then you just transplant into the boss's face. um Currently I've been switching from purely necrotic and spell to some crit, trying to figure out if it's better. I think it would be because when it crits, transplant hits pretty hard, and soul feast as well. And looking at the actual skills and their passives and all that's important. First off, you get Reaper form. You want to get Reaper's Curse, that extra damage, that crit, if you're going crit. That health lost on kill isn't anything you're going to notice, so don't worry about that. You could get Swiftness, it's optional, is up to you. And then you get that degen reduction. That damage over time is obsolete, don't look at it. Armor, if you stack a lot of intelligence, you get armor. You want to get Unholy Dominion because having two movement skills with a separate cooldown is a very big plus. You want to have it. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't, because that gives a lot of mobility. Then you get that flat necrotic damage and the crit multi. If you are going crit, of course. If not, you can get some defensive layers. You can get what else? You can get Reaper's Ascendance. I haven't tested it, so can't talk about it. Anyway, next up, hungering. I'm saying hungering souls for the 100th time now. Soul Feast. Yeah, Soul Feast is initially it costs like 8-10 mana, something like that. It's not a big deal. It gives you ward for damned or cursed enemy around you. Blah blah blah. You don't care about that. You actually want to get that renewed feast and the mana cost multiplier. You want to skyrocket it so that you can tap it a couple of times and get out of mana. Because transplant does bonus damage when you're out of mana. But about that in a second. You want to get the renewed feast. I've put 2 points in it because I think if it multiplies the mana cost even further, it will be quite uncomfortable. But anyway, it hits pretty hard. It clears perfectly. You might want to get damned because you can inflict damned with drain life, but you're not draining life from every mob you encounter, so damned from that one. And then this is probably the most important one. You initially you need to cast it on cursed enemies, but now that passive makes it so that you can cast it on every mob. You don't need the mob to be cursed. And then it makes the area of effect not around you but in a console that you can gun down packs swiftly. And next up, this is just area of effect, damage, mana efficiency, maximum targets. There's a lot of fluff. You could get chill, you could get that haste, you could get, if you want, you could get ward, but we're not dealing with ward. I've tried it out. It barely does anything worthwhile if you haven't spec'd into ward heavily, so forget about that. Next up, transplant. Actually, the skill that we're building around. You first off, you could get the one that the one that converts the physical damage to necrotic. After that, you want to get all the corpses that transplant generates, all the detonations, which are corpses on arrival, corpses on departure, plus 3, +2, +1. Probably this one is, I don't know. So you get a couple of extra explosions from it, and you try to get that out of mana damage, which is pretty significant. So I think that the wording says detonations, so I hope it refers to all the corpses. So I think it does. Judging from the damage I'm seeing, it does. But anyway, that's our main kind of combo rotation. We tap with Soul Feast, we get out of mana, and then transplant if something's left standing, of course, because Soul Feast clears efficiently anyway. And then you get drain life. You need it just to get back on full HP. If you are backtracking, if you're just if you haven't encountered any enemies from which you could leech, you might want to leave some stragglers tagging along, just in the form of a mobile blood bank. For example, a fat mob that won't die from one tapping drain life on it, just because if the echo is, if the layout is a bit tunnely, and or you have to go back to the beginning or something like that, I don't know, sometimes you run out of reperform. The degen stacks pretty high, so drain life gets you back on full HP in a second. So it's kind of mandatory for my setup at least. And the last skill that I'm using is Dead Seal, and I'm using it mainly because I wanted to have a way to manually put myself at low life, which I do with Deadlock. So yeah, if your health is above 33% of your maximum when you activate Dead Seal, it is reduced to 33% of your maximum health, so you become on low life. So basically, you get into the boss, you put Dead Seal on, then you twice tap Soul Feast, out of mana, transplant while on low life, of course, because you have a bit of duration. So all that damage lines up perfectly, as you've probably seen. I'll try to demonstrate it in a couple of minutes in a final round. But apart from that, all the fluff you can get from that one is just mortal pulse. If you want to have something to clear the extra shit around the boss, maybe that's it. You get duration, you can get yeah, current health drain, prevent that health degen from reperform. You could get that. I think it's kind of self-explanatory, and you would probably want to get it based on release. When you release that seal, you move faster and blah blah blah. You get some leech, but the main part is the luck, and then passives. There is that one that gives you a triple effect while low life. Oh, that increased damage. The effect is tripled. We get all the intelligence. We get all the mana, leech, necrotic damage, necropen, necrotic damage, and yeah, I've recently spec'd into crit. You can get that crit. Spell damage. I'm steering away from health drain effects, and yeah, intelligence would scale my damage, but I would lose reperform more quickly. I would probably run out of reperform in a number of scenarios that I wouldn't be comfortable to that happen. So I'm staying away from those currently. The gear, nothing too special. I like last Epoch because you can get pretty much insane crafts. You can get everything you need from the ground. Just picking random shit. Getting your loot filter, of course, is important. So you want to search for stuff with spell damage, necrotic damage, and if you're going crit, you can just shuffle it up a bit, because crit is a prefix, and spell and necro damage is a prefix as well. So you might want to try some exalted ceiling and all of that. High-end crafting, which I hadn't had the chance to try out because I'm currently blasting my way through echoes. So a couple of disclaimers, though. The build is not hardcore viable, probably because it involves a lot of risk with that low life shenanigan, although it is pretty tanky. And I have to say, since I hadn't played for a long time, probably last time I played was when the rogue class was released, and just for a couple of weeks, and I hadn't tried the depths of it there. I hadn't done dungeons. I hadn't pushed the monolith, and I went in blind on those quest timelines and the bosses, the Emperor of Corpses, those 3 shamans, the shades that you get, and I've done all of them deathless. It's been smooth sailing so far, so you probably wouldn't have any issues with crafting and getting that build up and running. Oh, and one last thing I forgot to mention, you could potentially go full physical and use that Orkirian's Petals relic, and then you would probably go bleed and some rip blood action automated, so that rip blood casts when you transplant. You may as well drop drain life and get Aura of Decay with armor shred instead of being poisoned. So that way you can maintain reperform permanently, but I'm not sure if I can offset that drop in defense, and I haven't tried it. But switching out to a completely different build is it's way easier in that game. It's basically crafting a whole new set of gear is achievable by a few runs. It's intuitive, it's fun, rewarding, and it's not like that other game. And you can You can try out a couple of builds in a day if you have the mats, if you have the patience to just go through all the crafting. But I would recommend you trying out if physical would be better suited for you. I'm sticking with Necrotic because I've just found gear that's easier to craft, and it's been easier for me to scale Necrotic. So let me just do a final round, um, showing off the actual combo and what it does. Okay, I've got a shade here, but I don't want to initiate that now. I'm just gonna do a quick run with, so you get paper form and then you start gunning them down with soul feast until you get something that needs that extra beef in your hits, which would probably be the boss. As you can see, we are just slightly on the verge of being out of mana. We can drain back life whenever we want, and that guy survived. Anyway, sometimes there's snapshotting issues with Soul Feast. It kind of misses the target if the target is teleporting or jumping or something like that, but most of the time it gets the job done, and you would be fairly comfortable with just clearing everything with it. In that case, now we have to backtrack, and so you can see that the degen is getting pretty intense. You can pop a few potions just to mitigate it, and then you get drain life, and we're good to go. So sustaining it is not an issue. You might consider not going over of decay, just for that extra layer of defense that armor gives you. Where's that dragon? As you can see, two mobility skills that do not share a cooldown. You could get Reap with extra distance, of course, but it's not necessary. In life, you can clear some packs with the Necrotic explosions as well, and here we get that's it. We popped our dead seal, then we hit Soul Feast a couple of times, out of mana, Transplant. You could potentially die if you mess your combo, and instead of hearing that, you might hear that, but as long as you don't mess it up, it should be fairly straightforward and satisfying for you to run it. Okay, so as I've said, do not go hardcore with that, and do not twist my words that it could clear the entire end game. I haven't tried it. I'm yet to try the actual end game, and I am going to be pushing that monolith, getting to the empowered versions of the Monolith of Fate, and I'll try to update that build in a couple of days, see where it goes. Until then, as I've said, please feel free to share any comments, any warnings, or variations of the build, or if you've tried anything similar to it, if you have any gearing recommendations, and try to adjust and augment the build as much as I can, so that it could potentially clear the entire end game. Until then, keep that hammer pounding.